I want to jump into even just this first slide. Why did I pick this chicken and the egg? It's because in business, you're sort of stuck in this situation. And the situation I want you to think about being stuck is what drives business? Is it someone having an idea and then implementing the idea, or someone identifying an opportunity and then implementing the different steps in order to successfully execute the ideas in order to serve the opportunity? So in the ideal world, you would want people to constantly search for opportunities and then try to satisfy those opportunities. But the reality is most business entrepreneurs are following ideas. And so when you are looking at Cade and Corbett, or when you're looking at anything you're working on in your businesses right now, it is very common and it's sort of standard and natural to be thinking in terms of ideas, when in fact you should be thinking in terms of opportunities. So what comes first? It should be opportunities comes first, and then ideas come second. But the reality is everyone comes up with ideas first. So what I try to explain to students is you have to constantly reverse engineer the ideas and constantly think about the ideas and then think about them in terms of opportunities. So for example, if you write in the opportunity section, attend more music events, that's not an opportunity. Attend more music events, that's a tactic. So it's an idea. And therefore you could not say that the opportunity is to attend more music events. So you would have to say, so what's the chicken and the egg? Well, it's the opportunity, the first step. So how would you reverse engineer the idea of why don't Cade and Corbett attend more music events? How would you reverse engineer that? How would you state this into an opportunity? How would you state this into a fact? Attend more music events. So the reverse engineer of this would be music events have increased an artist's success in increasing its number of fans and followers by 20%, according to a source on a date. So the fact is that music events have been positively influencing the success of an artist. That's a fact. The fact that Cade and Corbett should use more music events, that's a suggestion, and therefore that becomes not a fact, but a tactic. So you have to constantly think about, my ideas are okay, but let me rewrite those ideas into opportunities with supporting evidence. And that's what you're trying to do. So that's my message through this little slide. A great channel of life is knowing enough to think you are right, but not know enough to know that you are wrong. So that's the idea in business is when do you know that you're right? Do you have enough information to make a decision that you're right? And so in business, you don't want to be constantly looking for more and more and more and more information in order to make a decision, because then you're going to procrastinate. Maybe you're going to miss on opportunities, because opportunities are oftentimes time opportunities. They don't last forever. So if you miss it and let it go, then it's too late to get the opportunity at the easiest level to get to and get the benefit of those opportunities. So time is very important, and therefore you don't want to procrastinate. But at the same time, you don't want to be jumping around and starting new things all at the same time. Otherwise, you won't be able to succeed as well, because you can't do too many things at the same time. So get information. Don't be humble to know that there's always risk, but also be able to know that you need to have more information in order to make better decisions. So making sure that you know enough. So what is marketing? If there was one word to define marketing, what would that word be? Anyone remembers? If there was one word to define marketing, what would that word be?
Satisfaction.
Absolutely. If there was one word for marketing, it would be satisfaction. The idea that your job is to satisfy a customer at a profit and long term. So that's very important. So what you do in business is you try to make decisions and you try to minimize risks and maximize opportunities. So you look in your environment for changes that you can take advantage of. Where do you look in the environment for opportunity you can take advantage of? First, what is your environment? Your environment is made of the micro and macro elements. And from these, you can identify opportunities and threats. So far, this is a repeat of things, all right? I'm just repeating so I put things back into the context. To look in your environment, you do your micro and macro, and you do your person analysis. Once you have your person analysis, you're able to come up with directions, suggestions, and the suggestions are really going to come out through the SWOT analysis. From the SW, which is internal, there you can have in the SW mention of Cade and Corbett, but in the O and T, you don't state Cade and Corbett, never, because it's external, so it has nothing to do with Cade and Corbett, your client, your business. So your strengths is what the company organization is good at. The weaknesses is what the company is weak at, not good at, does not do very well. The opportunity are the condition in the external environment that favor your strengths, and the threats are the condition in your environment as well that do not relate to existing strengths or favor the areas of your current weaknesses. So they're going to become an impediment. They're going to become something that stops you, slow you down, the threats. Opportunity are not what you're going to do. So you don't ever mention the name of the client when you talk about the opportunities. Opportunities are not ideas. Opportunities are just facts. Facts that are in the environment and that you can relate to. So again, I repeat, I'm really emphasizing this because this is very, very important. What is Chobani, for example? Chobani is a yogurt company. Now, Chobani is not a music example, but it's a business example. But it's what I'm teaching you applies to all kinds of different things because it would apply to yogurt. So why was Chobani successful? Anyone knows? Why were they successful?
Because they made people think that eating yogurt was sexy and fun.
Well, that's true. They make people maybe eat more of their yogurt. But why did they create this company? What is it that they did that the world needed?
Something healthy.
Something healthy. Yes, but if people didn't eat Chobani, what did they eat before? They eat Yoplait, they eat Danone, other brands of yogurt.
They ate a yogurt without sugar, right?
Well, there is there's the natural sugar of the milk inside. But what happens is, if you didn't eat Chobani before you ate Yoplait and Danone, these are French brands. What do people that like yogurt say about those brands? They're terrible. However, if you go in France, they're really good. So how come Yoplait makes a terrible yogurt in America and a fantastic yogurt outside, let's say in France?
Import versus export.
No, what marketing is about? Satisfaction of the customer. Would you satisfy a customer? So they make different yogurt in different places because there's different customers. If the customers are not needy, have high expectation, you're not going to make something fantastic. So in America, most of those brands of yogurts taste like cardboard, taste like plastic. So Chobani came from Iran, and when he came to the US, he found that there was no yogurt he could eat because they are all terrible. And then he realized why they were terrible, because the milk they're using is terrible. So then he said, it's very easy. If you take good milk, you make good yogurt. But the big issue is, why did they succeed? Because there was a customer that cared for good yogurt. They went from $30,000 the first month to $1 billion 12 months after. Why? Because there's someone that cared for good yogurt. So people were eating the Yoplait and Danone because they had no other choices, and they figure out, that's what yogurt is, and I'm supposed to be healthy. I'm going to eat that, but it's not very tasty, so I'm going to just eat that. Until Chobani came and went to see the farmers and say, wow, that milk is terrible. No wonder they make bad yogurt. Why don't we use good milk and we make good yogurt? But then the big problem is, am I the only one in America that care for good yogurt? If I'm the only one that care for good yogurt, Therefore, making a Chobani good yogurt is an idea. But if there is the opportunity, which is there is millions of people in America that will eat yogurt that tastes not like cardboard. If someone was making the effort of making it with good milk, that's an opportunity. And if that opportunity exists and is ready, then you make the good yogurt. And then you go from 30,000 to $1 billion. You know, it's not easy to go from 30,000 to $1 billion. Not many businesses are able to do that. But all the business that are successful is because there is a customer that cares. You may say, well, there's sometimes businesses that are successful, but it doesn't last because what they do is they do something that is fashion, trendy, seems very desirable. But the reality is if you are like Chobani and you keep on going and going and going, it's because you are actually eating a spot. People do care for that satisfaction that you're providing, and they will buy again and again all the different Chobani product that you make because they would expect better satisfaction, better quality yogurt. If nobody cares for high quality yogurt, forget about it. Okay, so it happens to me. In 2008, I created a franchise of bakery in the US. And so I created it because I had a friend that was an investor and he wanted to invest in the bakery. So I got lucky. I didn't have much knowledge about the baking, but I knew someone that wanted to invest in it. So I created one bakery and and one thing that I did is I created it with I made all the baked goods, like the croissant and all this bread, with the best butter. To find the best butter is you can't find it very easily. It's extremely good butter. It's hard to find in America. So I had to buy the butter in Pennsylvania from a group of people called the Amish. Best butter made in America is from the Amish. I'm sure you can guess why. And so then I had UPS take the butter from the Amish and bring it to me in California in my bakery. And then within 3 months, I think I won best bakery of the county in 3 months, not in 1 year, 2 years, 3 months, because the people that do the rating are professional tasters and they tasted my croissant, for example, and there was nothing better. But here's what happens. With my croissant, the butter was so good that every time you took the croissant, the thing was so brittle because it was using beautiful butter that it would break in multiple pieces all the time. And so most of the consumers didn't like it because they thought they were making a mess. And they wanted to eat it while they were driving. So my croissants were the worst because they were so brittle, so beautiful, buttery, crispy, that they would make a mess while you're driving. So a lot of my sales didn't go very up until I found out that people wanted to eat the croissant. They didn't care so much of the quality. They cared that they could eat it while they walk, eat it while they drive, eat it while they watch YouTube, eat it while, you know. So then I changed my croissant. I used a different type of butter and I put sugar cubes on the croissant. And so therefore they tasted like sugar. And now my sales went up, big time up. And so who was wrong, the customer or I? I was wrong. The people wanted excellent, elitist croissant. They didn't exist in large numbers. People just wanted sugary stuff that they could eat while they walked between the toilet and the bathroom and the living room or whatever. And so, hey, made a mistake. Why did I make a mistake? Because I did build a bakery based on my own interest, my own product, and not the one that the customer wants. I was being too artistic by making the croissant that I thought were the best croissant in the world. So yeah, I won the industry gourmet raters. They liked it, but not so much the customer. So I wanted this to be a for-profit business because I wanted to build up a second, third, fourth bakery and even go into a food truck and all that. So I had to change my recipe to reflect what people wanted. So that's kind of funny because what Chobani did is he made a better yogurt. And what I did with the bakery is I made a worse baked goods in order to start selling them. So at the end, who's the boss? The customer. And who's right? The customer. If they want a worse yogurt, make a worse yogurt if that's what they want. But there was a business for a better yogurt. So he was lucky to go that direction. Do you have any question? So that's important. I want to show you another one. Underwood is a brand of wine that you may have heard because they became also extremely successful. They went into the hundreds of millions of dollars sales. They were just another Pinot rosé type of wine made in America, and they were selling almost nothing until something bad happened to them, and that became something really good. What happened bad to them is they were almost out of business, and they had to use their last money to do a marketing promotion event. But the marketing promotion event, they got into a situation where they couldn't use glass. They couldn't use glass bottle. They couldn't use glasses to serve. They had to come up with something else. But I mean, I don't know if you've ever tasted wine in plastic glasses. It's pretty nasty. I mean, you take the best wine in the world in a plastic glass, it tastes like the worst wine in the world. So it's kind of counterintuitive to try to get people to taste the wine that you work very hard to make good in a plastic glass. It defeats the purpose. So they reverted to something that was never done before, is they put the wine into aluminum cans. And that in that event, they served the wine in aluminum cans. And what happens is people actually really thought it was really good, which gave them the idea of making wine in aluminum cans every day and sell it that way. That became a multi-billion-dollar success because of now you can find them everywhere. And now they have many, 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 many competitors. So what was the opportunity? People want to drink wine in glass, but also in aluminum can because they want the convenience of the aluminum can for use in certain situations. It's more convenient, it's more easy, you don't have to uncork, you can have your own glass, it does the bottle, it does the glass at the same time. Boom, huge success. Okay? So I'm drilling all kinds of ideas about successes. This is very different. This is a product that is made in order to help people take their pill. What is the biggest problem when people take their pills?
We forget.
They forget. Exactly. Actually, I have one. This was a student from about 20 years ago. He was just in the class. He was, doing okay. Eventually came to see me and said, the idea is to make a standard container like this, but with a little cap. I'm holding the cap. And the cap would have a timer on front. And the beauty of that timer is when you open it, it tells you the last time that you open it, so that way you remember if you took it today or yesterday, and you know that you need to take your pill. And I said to the students, what is the idea? Well, the idea is a medicine container that has a time cap. What is the opportunity? What is the opportunity here? The opportunity is grandma forget. Grandma forget is the opportunity. If grandma doesn't forget, then there's no opportunity. Grandma forgets. So I told him, I said, it's a fantastic opportunity because grandpa forget, grandma forget, people forget. You don't want a double dose and all that. So then he created RX timer cap, that student. And so the RX timer cap now you can find it at Costco, Walgreens, Save On, Rite Aid. You can find it everywhere. Walmart. And it's a student from CSUN that was a marketing student in the college. And so he came up with this. It was very simple. He's not even an engineer, but he just came up with the engineering of the cap that turns on and off. And now you find it in lots of places. And so the opportunity is grandma forget. If grandma starts not to forget their pill, then there's no need for his business anymore. So need to make better decisions. We need to make better decisions because we don't want to wing businesses by trying to start a business and hope to get lucky because we pray God likes us more than others. We just have good tarot. I don't know what kind of nonsense people may be thinking they're going to make them more lucky than someone else. So the more information, the better you will be able to take decisions. So you have to make research decisions. So what is research? Research is trying to identify, collect, analyze, and report information in order to increase the decisions that you make and identify the problems you're trying to solve and the opportunities in the market that you can take advantage of. So you don't do research just because I got to do research, so I don't know. So that way I can say I've done research. You do research to improve the likelihood of your decisions to be more successful. Not, you want to stay away from random luck. So where do you look? You look for information that you have in your company. How many products have we sold? What is the month we sell the most product? Who do we sell products? Which states do we sell products? What is the product that makes the biggest profits? What other product do they buy when they buy this product? What is the product that they bought and buy again? Repeat business. So you do that. You look in your record, the company databases, and you try to find some opportunities from just conjectures of things that happen more often. The other thing is you do marketing intelligence. So marketing intelligence is you look at what your competitors are doing. You go to trade shows and you see the different changes that are happening. You listen to speakers, conference people, experts. You read industry magazines. You follow the social media of your competitors, right? And so that's what you do, is you constantly look for information. So there's a difference between marketing intelligence and market research. The difference is marketing intelligence, you do it all the time to see if you see something surface. It's like you're a guard. Is you guarding the whole environment, you're scanning for a change. And if you see a change, then you focus on that change and try to interpret that change. Versus marketing research is you have a question. What should we do in order to increase the price of our product? Should we increase it by 10%, 5%, 20%? Should we increase it at the end of this month, at the end of next month? What, something like this. So you have a specific question, that's a marketing research question. You don't have any specific question, that's marketing intelligence. It's gathering information for when you see something. It's like someone, it's like, imagine a boat from the 1700 and there's somebody at the top of the boat and he's right there at the top of the boat and he's just looking at the horizon, just looking for something to change. Right? Marketing intelligence comes from military intelligence. That's what they do. Military intelligence is a bunch of people spying day and night to see a change and interpret that change. So in marketing, you also do that. Versus marketing research is something very focused that you're trying to find information. Where do you find information? The two main source of information is two names. It's secondary data and primary data. Secondary data is data that already exists. So the first source of secondary data, I already talked about it. It's the internal data, the data of the business that you already have. The second source is the external data. So buying data or getting data from someone that has already collected it. Now, the primary data is different because you have to collect it yourself. So either you collect it yourself by having someone collect it for you, or you collecting yourself by collecting yourself. So advantage and disadvantage. Secondary data is collected faster because it's already existing. Secondary data is better because it's cheaper, usually much cheaper. Sometimes it's free. I mean, using Google is free for the most part. Sometimes you have to pay in order to get to some databases. But for the most part, you can find free data. So that's the beauty. Secondary data, so it's faster, cheaper. It may be, while you do the research of secondary data, you are able to find other problems and further research and further get answers. So that's the beauty. The problem with the secondary data is they may be not recent or not recent enough. So that's a problem. It may be produced by someone who's not very reliable. Maybe there's even a bias. Maybe the person who collected the data is bad, but maybe the person is just giving fake information through this secondary data. Maybe the secondary data is looking at something you're interested, but it's not exactly what you want. So it's like you're trying to wonder, are women more interested in R&B or in pop music? And then you can't find anything about this in America, but you find this in Qatar. You have the answer to information, which is from 2 weeks ago in Qatar. So then can you use the Qatar information to interpret this for the US population? Maybe not so good. So lots of issues with secondary data. But primary data is more reliable. It's more precise. It's more recent because you're doing it yourself. But the big problem is you have to pay for it. So it all depends on how quickly you need the information, how important is the reliability of the information, that you will go towards more secondary or primary data. But it's important to see the difference between both. In this class, and I'm going to say it several times, because even if I say 10 times, I think there's still one group that do it. So I don't really want to say it 10 times, but maybe 2 times would be enough. I do not want you to collect questionnaires. So a questionnaire is a type of primary data. So you give people a survey and you analyze the survey. So I don't want you to do a questionnaire, because the questionnaire is a quantitative research. Quantitative research is more complicated and you need large databases. It's very time consuming, and I don't want you to bury yourself in a lot of work collecting primary data from surveys. So stay away from the surveys. However, I would rather have you do qualitative research. So qualitative research in that situation is you actually interview people. And maybe you interview a group of people, not just single people, and you do multiple interviews. The advantage of qualitative research is it's collected faster. It can be interpreted much faster as well, because you're collecting it so fast. The problem with qualitative research is it's usually a small sample. You just interview 3 people. So 3 people, can this be representative of all the Americans? Probably not. And so therefore there's a lot of deductions. And therefore it's kind of unreliable. However, it can be more authentic as well, because people are more likely to tell you the truth from an interview than they will tell you the truth from a questionnaire, because the questionnaire is only answering the question you ask. It may not be what they think, versus when you ask them what they think, then you ask it in multiple ways and you video them and you reanalyze their behavior and all kinds of things. And if you're a good interviewer, you're more likely, I'm not saying it's 100%, but more likely to be closer to what is really what they think versus the questionnaire. So the questionnaire, the advantage is you can do it to thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. And therefore, you have a better representation of the population by being able to interview thousands of people. So as you can see, quantitative and qualitative research has pros and cons. So my suggestion, not to do a recap, is to do secondary data collection, collecting existing data, and 2, to do qualitative research for the primary research, where you do interviews. Maybe you do focus groups. How many focus groups should you do? When do you stop doing another focus group? When? Oftentimes the students ask me, how many focus groups should we do? Because I would say all of you probably will do focus groups, hopefully. If it's not in this class, if you didn't do it in this class, you will see that it's important to do it, and you will do it in the next one. So between now and June, you will do a focus group. Not in this class, you will learn to do it in the next one because you missed doing it. So I suggest you all do it. But then you're going to come and say, should we do 1 focus group or 10 focus groups? When do we know that we've done enough focus groups? When? So what's a focus group? Maybe you don't know what it is. So what it is you interview people and there's more than one person. The advantage of a focus group is that you have several people hearing the answers, hearing the question at the same time, and hearing the answers from the other people, which sort of gives them the opportunity to agree or disagree with what has been said and add comments on what has been said. So there is more dynamic, and therefore you usually get more answers from a focus group, or at least more variety of answers from a focus group than you get from a one-on-one interview. But with a one-on-one interview, you tend to go deeper, more into the emotional, intimate belief of the person. So the intimate belief won't be as revealed and communicated into a focus group normally. So that's the benefit of being one-on-one. So when do you stop doing another focus group. You do one focus group, then a second focus group, then a third focus group, then a sixth, seventh focus group. When is it that you should stop doing focus group? Is there, what would be, do you think, the indication of stopping doing focus group? You've had enough focus group. So when they've answered your questions, all your questions, what about when you start getting the same answers from the different groups? If you start getting repetition of answers across groups, it means that you don't need to do another focus group because now you've already sort of got some consensus among the answers. You can't say, you know, we asked 10 groups these questions, and of the 10 groups, we got 6 groups that had these answers, and therefore we stopped. And therefore that means 60%. That's what students do all the time, 99% of the time. They do 10 focus group, and then they start presenting the percentage. If you do qualitative research, you cannot present percentage because most of the qualitative research is done for 20, 30, 50, 80 people. And 80 people is not over 100. And when you use the percentage, you use 100%. So you say 30%. Percent is a French word that means per 100. Percent. And so that's why you say 5 cents, because it's 5 cents of 100. So, people don't realize that they when they speak English, they speak poorly spelled French. What do you mean? 40% of English is French. Why is that? Well, 40%, 46% is French, and about 15% is Latin. So when the people who speak Spanish, they think that when they speak English, there's so many words in English. There are not really so many words in Spanish. It's not so many words in Spanish. It's because Spanish and French are Latin, and a lot of the Latin word deriving in French is also deriving in Spanish, and there is the connection. Why do English people speak so much French? 46% of the words. You know, what a disaster. What a sinister. What is French? Well, what is not French? What is Anglo-Saxon? It's all Gaelic language from England. Most of the words that are the most used are all Anglo-Saxon Gaelic languages. But most of the other words are French. I mean, if we look at telephone, telephone is French, person is French, questionnaire is French, observation is French, experiment is French, quantitative is French, individual is French, interview is French, groups is French, focus is French, qualitative is French, primary is French, research is French. All of these words are French words. Why do we use so many French words in English? Any idea? What does that have to do with marketing? Marketing is about words. Marketing is about communication. It's understanding how people think. So that's why I'm telling you this. It's a little sideline. But why in English there's so many French words? The reason is because
the Normans invaded England?
Exactly. Because the Normans invaded England in 1066. And then the Normans became the king of France. And for 200 years, it was the only language that you were supposed to speak in England, official language. And so they forced everyone to speak French. And then for another 200 years, that was almost the only one that they spoke. So they forced, and eventually the new king had enough of French, and then he started a 100-year war, 400 years after this. So that's why all the fancy words are French, and all the simple words are English. The top 100 words, I think, there's 2 words that are French. You know, what? That's not a French word. Oh, you know, good, bad, hello, bye. All of these words that you use a lot, they are not the French because they use the court. In the court, they use the French words. So all the fancy words became French, and all the simple words stayed English. It's a side information I give you, not because I'm trying to brag about French, but just because that's the language that you probably mostly speak. And if you don't know the origin of the word, you've only accomplished not the full understanding of your culture, but anyway. And so when you look at percent, so that was the origin of this, percent means 100. And so it's so often that people that said, oh, we did an interview of 9 people, and of the 9, there is 9 that said that they agree that Michael Jackson was the best singer. So it's 100% of the people that think Michael Jackson was the best singer. How could you say 100%, 100 per 100 when you ask 9 people? So therefore, you'll have to ask more than 100 in order to use the percentage. It's a small thing, but why do I say that? Is because eventually you will be making presentation and many of you will be using percentage. And like I just said, I strongly recommend that you do qualitative research. And I'm going to be obnoxious. I strongly encourage you to interview people. And I strongly discourage you to do surveys. Surveys is too much work. And so I don't recommend that you do surveys. And there's another reason. The other reason is in research, there's 3 levels of research. There's exploratory, descriptive, and causal research. And I won't go into too much depth. I just want you to know the differences between the 3. Exploratory research is when you just collect information in the most simple way. The 2 methods to collect information in the most simple way is 1, collect secondary data. So just to keep it in today's world, Google things. And 2, do a qualitative research by doing people interview. So exploratory research, if I was to ask you in a quiz, what is exploratory research? Exploratory research is secondary data and basic qualitative research. Now, if I ask you what is descriptive research is when you're trying to get statistical significance, is you're trying to get reliability of the information. Therefore, reliability does not come really from secondary data because it's someone else producing it, and does not come for interviewing because interviewing, I mean, nobody interviews 1,000 people. That's not the purpose of interviewing. Interviewing is to go in depth with just a few people. So you do a survey. And then when you do a survey, you collect a lot of data, and then you have to put it in a software and analyze the data, interpret the data, because you're trying to be reliable. So that's what descriptive research. What is therefore the purpose and differences between exploratory research and descriptive research? And what I'm telling you right now is very important. The purpose is exploratory research is to know why people do a certain things. It is very difficult or pretty much impossible to know why people do certain things in a questionnaire. In a questionnaire, if you, let's take an example. Is it possible, why do people go to the gym? Why people go to the gym?
To look good and feel good.
To look good and feel good. That's a very good answer. To lose weight, to stay healthy, to look young. All right. So all of these reasons. Now, if you give them a bit of, I don't know, a bit of cognac, and you ask them why do they go to the gym, suddenly they don't tell you that. They tell you it's because I really want to look better. But then you say, okay, but how much better? A lot better. Why do you want to look better? Well, I want to look better because I want sex. And then you go to the gym because you want sex. And then it's like, yes, that's the deep down reason. How could you get this information from a questionnaire? Never in a questionnaire, anyone will say, I go to the gym because I want better and more sex. However, if you do an interview, you'll be surprised that most people will tell you, if you do a good interview, meaning you do a deep, authentic, intimate interview when they tell you the truth and they actually try to reveal the real reason. If you ask people, you go to the gym because of sex, they may say, no, that's not the reason. But if they really start thinking deep down on all this, they may say, hey, you're right, that's kind of an unconscious reason. That was strange. I never thought of this that way. So why am I saying this? I'm not a dirty perv trying to talk about this. I'm just telling you all this because it's interesting to see that there's a difference between what people think, why they do things, and why they actually do things. There's a big gap. And so that's why you have to be careful, because when you do a questionnaire, you rarely get the why. The why, you can get them from qualitative research, from the exploratory research. Then what you do is you collect all the why that you were able to get from the interviews, and then you may be able to put those why into a questionnaire, and then get what we call the frequency. The frequency is the number of people that say, I go to the gym because of weight. I go to the gym to stay healthy. I go to the gym because of diabetes. I go to the gym, and you get all the potential answer, and then you get a frequency. So you can't dig out the reason why, but you can get the frequency of the reason why. And so then you can connect maybe people's age with the answers, people gender with the answers, people ethnicity with the answers, people income with the answers. And then you may find that low income is more for health, high income is more for appearances. I don't know. I'm just making a connection here, but it might not be true at all, just for the sake of explaining to you. So that's why it's important to get descriptive, because your purpose is going to be to get reliable, large database with frequencies. Now, I just told you that's very, very important, and that's something is misunderstood. And so you oftentimes see people doing research. So this is sort of a recap. So when you do research, you collect two data: secondary, which exists, primary, that you have to collect. When you collect primary, you have two types of data: qualitative data and quantitative data. When you collect quantitative data, you have descriptive and experimental. So I didn't explain what. So descriptive is the survey. Experimental, I didn't explain what it was. It's called also called causal research. Is you try to find cause and effects. So usually it's also called experimental because you make an experiment. So it's done in like a lab situation, like a simulation. So you get people to play with computers, and there's like software, and they play with the software, and then they pretend that they're buying, you know. Or you could do a simulation where you rent a supermarket, for example, and you change the furniture location inside the supermarket, and you have 120 people coming with a specific setting of the furniture, and then you have 100 people coming with, you change the furniture. When they go in the supermarket, right away they have the fruits, and they start with the fruits and they end with the clothes, and then you reverse it. They start with the clothes and they end with the fruits, and then you try to make some deduction that certain people buy more by starting with the fruits, and sometimes some certain people buy more by starting with the fashion and clothing. So that's the experiment. Here, what I'm missing is I should have two, I normally have, but no in particular on that slide. Next to qualitative data, there's two arrows that go down as well into two green boxes, and qualitative research is broken down into interviews and focus groups, to summarize everything. And then when you do descriptive research, is you do survey and observational. So observational is when you put a camera somewhere and you observe people behavior, and then you count people behavior by looking at their behavior based on thousands of people moving, touching, looking in different locations. So you can do observational data by making people wear some kind of mask, and the mask is looking at where people are looking from their pupil, and you give them to look at website, and you see where they're looking on the website, where they spend the most time on the website, and you're observing their behavior. And then from different variation of websites, you will observe where they're looking at more, what do they see the most, and what they find more interesting. Because if you ask people, what did you find more interesting? They may tell you one thing, but if you actually measure people's time spent on an area of the website based on their eye looking at the area, that's a more reliable measure, because that's exactly what they did versus what they told you that they did. So it's very important to see the difference between these two. Now, I'm moving into strategies, and I just did one last week, so I'll go pretty quick on that, but I want to go back to it and explain. So I explained the fact that when you talk about strategies, you have lower level strategies, like something that you do for the day, and something that you do for the month, and something that you do for the year. And I give you this example a while back by saying, you know, coming to CSUN to do a MIA degree, that's a strategy, versus, you know, how you work on an assignment. I mean, some people are going to be presenting today. That's a tactic. So today's work is a tactic. Getting a MIA master degree is a strategy. So that's the two differences. So you have to see the difference between these two levels. Strategy is high level, tactic is low level, which means that strategies are explained by the tactics. So first, you have those objectives. The objectives are explained by the strategies, the high level directions, plans that you're going to take. On those high level plans, are going to explain by smaller activities, which are the tactics. So you, I hope, learn this from the management class that you took with Professor de Gravel, where you talked about the different strategies that you're taking and the different tactics. So tactics feed into the strategies and strategies feed inside the objectives. So when looking at strategies, you have to think about the fact that you have different products, and those different products are in different times of their life and different time of growth. So you have what's called the Boston Consulting Group matrix. The BCG matrix looks at 4 quadrants and put your product in those 4 quadrants, depending on your market share and the growth of this product. So, I mean, if you're selling some tapes, the tapes will be the dogs. It's a product that you sort of want to remove. There's no growth. If you're selling some vinyl, maybe your vinyl music is in the question mark, which means that you have low growth, but you have some growth. But maybe you may have a high market share because you're very successful in that particular market. And then the star are the one where you have, I don't know, maybe you're doing streaming with a specific song that is streaming and is very successful because it's a song that is one of the most listened, most downloaded, most streamed, and at the same time, it's a gender that you have control, some market share people are listening to you. And then, so it is very important to look at the product that you're selling and see where do they fit. Are they a product that you should disinvest? Are they a product that are growing because of the trend, and therefore you want to grow your market share because the demand for the product is growing, but not so much for you. So the problem is not to try to get people to buy that specific category of product, is to try to buy yours. And maybe you have another product where you are dominating and in a category that is growing, and you may have another one where the category is declining, but you have a very famous, successful product in there, and that becomes your cash cow. There's another matrix which is the same, so I won't spend too much time. It's called the GE, General Electric matrix. It's the same concept, but the difference is instead of having 4 boxes, is you have 8 boxes. So one of the advantages of the GE matrix is it's more subtle. Instead of being low and high, you have the possibility to be medium in the middle, and that's one of our, in that situation you have medium and average, which is something is not so easy to see here. It's like you are inside the box or you are not. Versus with this is you could be in sort of no boxes but traveling in between. So this in between is very important because sometimes you don't want to think that you are, let's say, maybe you're question marks because you're traveling towards the star, or maybe you're a star that's traveling to, and you're a question mark because you travel from the star. So by knowing where you came from, it gives you an indication if it's easy to do something in order to move you in the direction, or if you've already been in the direction that you should have been, and now you're in a sort of a declining stage. What is benchmarking? Benchmarking is understanding the fact that you're not alone, and therefore you need to understand who are your competitors and what are their strengths and weaknesses. What are their strategies? Who are their targets and customers? What are their main benefits? What is the marketing intelligence that you've gathered from those competitors? Which direction are they going? What is their positioning? What is the image that they have? So benchmarking is really staying pretty close and getting as much information on your competitors to see what they're good at, to see what you should be preemptive and proactive about, and maybe learn from something they are doing that is successful early enough in order to sort of replicate it and benefit from their success to go towards your company. So again, objectives are the broad purpose, then the strategy is the broad plan in order to succeed with your objectives. And then the tactics are the detailed plans, activities that you're going to have in order to succeed for your strategies. So students in general do not understand the concept of opportunity, which is the fact that you can take advantage of. What's great is when you have opportunities that directly generate strategical decisions, meaning broader directions versus tactical decisions. And that's what's very important, is strategies generating opportunities generating strategies are so much better than opportunities generating tactics. The other thing I want to talk about is the concept of product life cycle. So the product life cycle is the fact that you have, when you launch a product, this product is in different stages. When you launch it, it's on the pre-introduction growth stage. It's just being launched. It's at the very beginning. What you try to do is to get it into growth stage, where the percentage of change month to month, week to week is growing very fast. It's a high number, double digits. Eventually you reach a point where you don't grow as much. That's the maturity. And then you have the decline. What's important is there's different focuses. In the introduction stage is to try to get the product to be approved by opinion leaders, meaning by people that care about the product. So that's very, very important. You use those innovators, those first users, those sort of influencers that you get at the beginning, because they're going to create the image, they're going to build the marketing for you. So, for example, right now I'm doing the consulting for someone that's launching a product, and they're launching it from their website. The sales have been so much better than we expected, but everything is sold from that website. So it's a business to consumer directly. There's no intermediaries. It's beautiful. But the problem is, because you have no intermediaries, your product is not really validated as much as if it's sold by a retailer. So we're trying to get one retailer to carry the product, so that way it's sold by the website of the business and by one retailer, which gives more credibility to that brand. And that way, the product is actually being marketed by someone else beside the brand trying to market itself. Obviously, brand marketing themselves is very biased, and we want the brand to be also marketed by some other people besides consumer that we want to advocate. We want also retailer to advocate for, of course. The problem is to get those retailers. And so here, what you want in the introduction stage is get retailers to support your product. Retailers, the big issue is the retailers, they make a big margin. Retailers sometimes, most of the time, make 50% of margins. Sometimes they make more than 50% of margins, right? So it's like you go to a guitar center, you buy a guitar, you bought your guitar $500. That guitar center may have bought this guitar for $250 in order to sell it for $500. The manufacturer sold it to a distributor, and therefore that distributor sold it for $250. How much did they buy it? They bought it for $120. And how much did it cost to make? It cost to make $80. So $80, they only made $40 versus the retailer made $250. That's why manufacturers are upset, because they think, you know what? I'm the manufacturer, I make $80, and they are the retailers, and they make $250. Well, it's because they make margin from a higher retail price versus you making it from the X work or the FOB price, from the manufacturer price. So that makes a big difference. So in the introduction stage, you want to focus on the needs of that retailer, which is that they want a product to be more famous, more known, but at the same time, they want a product that they can make a big margin. And so you reduce your margin at the very beginning to get more and more of those retailers. But as you're getting more retailers, you don't have to offer so much margins. So now you're able to lower your margins as you get more and more retailers, and therefore they don't make as much, but you start making a little bit more, which becomes your growth stage. And so when people ask, where do you have the biggest margin in percentage? In percentage, your biggest margin is in the growth stage, because in the growth stage, you don't have as many competitors, and you may be selling the product more directly, and you don't have to negotiate as hard with the trade and the retailers and the distributors and all that. However, where do you make the biggest revenue and profit might be in the maturity stage, because the maturity stage, the number of units of products, the number of concerts, the number of tickets that you sell is much bigger, but you don't make as much per ticket, but you sell many more tickets. So that's the maturity stage. So the growth, it's kind of, you sell less product, but you make more per product. In the maturity, you sell more product, but you make less per product. So that's the trade-off. And then in the decline stage, you make less money, you sell less units. So that there, what you try to do is to minimize your costs in the decline in order to try to make the most out of the product, spend less to sell the product so that way you don't, waste the money that you make by pushing the product out. So you make some promotions, but you don't make too much advertising. Promotion means you say 20% off. If nobody buys it, you don't lose 20%. But if they buy it, you lose 20%, but you make a sale. Versus if you do advertising, you advertise on the Super Bowl, that doesn't mean you're going to sell anything. You just spend millions and you hope that those millions turns into money. So that's the whole idea of life cycle. This product goes into different situation in the market in terms of amount of competition, amount of innovation, amount of demand. But at the same time, you have to vary the prices, vary the unit, vary where you make your margins. So the first strategy is the one I said last week. So I won't spend too much time on this. Market penetration is you sell the same product to the same market. So it's that, let's take something simple that everybody can relate, like Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola decides to do market penetration. What would they do? Well, they'll say how to sell more of Coca-Cola. Maybe they give a discount. Maybe they advertise more Coca-Cola. Maybe they put Coca-Cola for sale in more places. I mean, if you sell Coca-Cola in 1,000 restaurants, you will sell less Coca-Cola than if you sell it in 10,000 restaurants. So they're constantly trying to sell it in many more places and make it exclusive in those places. So that way they sell more. So that's market penetration. Product development is maybe they come up with a new flavor. So a new flavored Coke becomes product development. So Coke vanilla, Coke coffee, Coke banana, new flavors suddenly becomes Coca-Cola product development. Market development means that you sell it to a new customer. So in that situation, you could say Coke for people who have, digestive problems. And you come up with some kind of health benefits. A Coke with CBD or something like this. And in that situation, Coke with CBD will be two type of strategies, because CBD will be product development, and Coke with CBD going to a specific group of customers, it will be market development. So that particular example will be two strategies in one. Now, what would be diversification? That's what I said last week. Be careful because it's significantly different than what you're doing. So it would be Coca-Cola making cookies, Coca-Cola making furniture, and that would be diversification. If Coke comes up, as I just said, with a new flavor for a new type of customer, it's not diversification. It's two different strategies. There's product development for the flavor and market development because people consuming CBD is not everyone in the population. It's a specific group of people. Basic competitive strategy, that's another one. So overall cost leadership is when you try to be the cheapest one. So take the no frill, it's maybe the brand is not, there's no brand. It's just simply, in that situation, it's simply a white sneaker, white shoes. Focus is when you really try to sell the product to a very defined market. So it's also called, focus, or it's called targeted strategy, where you try to sell, it's called niche strategy as well. Targeted strategy, niche strategy, and focus strategy are the same thing. It's one product for a specific market. So Rika shoes, none of you may know that brand unless someone in your family is a nurse. A lot of nurses wear Rika shoes. It's a shoe made for women that work in the health industry most of the time. Now they sell it outside, but originally that's what it was. So they started from a very niche, small group, and they extended to the sport. But now they're still within women, so it must be a shoe for women still. So it's a focus thing. Differentiation is when you're trying to do a product where the focus, the idea is not to go after a specific group of customers, but it's to make the product that is significantly different, that people that like different products, not the same, new and better, or at least perceived as new and better, is the group of customers that you want to focus on. Middle of the road is when you don't have a very different product. Is you're trying to be the vanilla flavor of your market, the one that nobody loves, the one that nobody thinks is bad. It just works for everyone, and it's sort of this please everybody, easy to go with product. The next three strategies: operational excellence, customer intimacy, and product leadership. Operational excellence is when your implementation and execution is the best. It's easy for the very convenient. It's convenience for the customers, easy access, no complication. That's this excellence of the way you run the business. So maybe you could be American Express, you could be Disneyland, you could be even McDonald's in a way. They have operational excellence. It's very fast service. Customer intimacy is when there is just a very close knit relationship with the customers. Customers knows about you. Maybe you have a club. So I suppose Harley Davidson would be like this. People buy a Harley Davidson, they join a club. Porsche is like this. Porsche is the biggest car club in the United States of America. So they very much foster the club. Being a Porsche member is not very expensive because it's subsidized by Porsche. So they want people to be part of the club. Once you become a Porsche club member, even if you don't have a Porsche, you can be a Porsche club member. You enter into a lot of events. You get to know a lot of the new cars before anyone. They even have raffles where you can win a Porsche. The raffles are not very expensive. They put a lot of Porsche on raffles. So they cultivate this group, and the people become sort of fans of that brand, and it's cultivated. So customer intimacy is very big. And obviously, customer intimacy is a very important strategy when it comes to artists. And with social media, it makes things much easier. So people say, what is your strategy? My strategy is TikTok. TikTok is not a strategy. TikTok is a tactic. When people say, my strategy is social media, even social media is not a strategy. The strategy is customer intimacy using the tactics of TikTok or social media in order to get closer to your customers and cultivate your subscribers or limited gold members or whatever through your social media. That's name of that strategy is customer intimacy. Product leadership is a very tough one. It's easy to say, oh, I want the strategy of product leadership. The issue with this is that you need to really constantly innovate. And innovating means you take more risk, you have more chances to fail, and you're spending more money in R&D in order to come up with something new all the time. So obviously, no, I don't think anyone will disagree. Apple is very much of a product leadership constantly. I mean, WD-40 is obviously extremely different. You may never have thought of that, but that's also a product leader that not only is a product leader, but is also a market leader. So market leader is the next strategy, is when you try to have the biggest market share. Market challenger is you know that you don't have the resources in order to be the #1 sold in America. So what you try to do is you try to follow the market leader by learning. So you do a lot of marketing intelligence from the market leader by learning of what they do and closely resemble and adapt to what the market leader is doing in order to gain from the momentum. Then the market follower, it's sort of the same thing, but you're not so close to the market leader. So you just follow. And so you come sort of down the road. So you sort of have a step or two behind everyone. But the advantage of this is you don't take risks. You only follow for what is successful. So you invest almost nothing here in R&D. Is you're not a disruptor. You're not taking too much risk. The disadvantage is you won't gain a lot from having been at the first, which means that you become the leader, you become the biggest market share, you become the one that has the best relationship with the distribution and all that, because you started late. But you'll be able to be cheaper, and you'll be able to also get to learn from the mistakes of the leader and the challenger, so you save money and you may be more efficient. So now just to conclude, so what are the main strategies? Market penetration, new product development, market development, diversification. What's the difference between the strategies and the tactics? The strategies are the broad, big, long-term ideas versus the tactics are the shorter, smaller, short-term ideas. And they're usually implemented through the 4 Ps. So what you implement usually at the corporate level, that's your big strategies. And what you usually do within the ideas that you may have for the product and within the place and promotion, these are your typical tactics. So this is an image. It's for the right brainer, and then a text for the left brainer. these two things are exactly the same thing. I'm just trying to recap. So these are available in the tips. If you go to Canvas, there's a thing called file. If you click on file, there's a subfolder called tips. Inside the tips, you will see me giving you lists of different strategies. It's important that you look at that because you don't want to be too narrow-minded in just considering those strategies. These strategies is very important to know them because they are like 70–75% of the world strategies, but they are not the only one. There's 50–60 strategies, and I'm talking about the most common. So that's 70%, maybe that's 5%, 5%, 5%, right? So just know the basic strategies and because you'll use them. Why would you want to bother learning that? You want to learning that because you want to be able to think at a higher level when you are a business person. If you're in the music industry, you want to grow, you want to become a business music industry person. And if you want to grow your professionalism in business, you want to learn the basic strategies. It's like if you want to play chess, you don't want to play chess learning 1 or 2 tricks. You want to learn as many tricks as possible. So the more tricks you know, the better off you will be. Okay? So what I would like to do now is to move on to the group presentation. And so for the group presentation, let's see. Let's start with the Milgram and Schopenhauer group presentation first. So who do I share the screen with in order to be presenting the Schopenhauer and Milgram?
Do you want me to share my screen?
Yes, I can. I need to know who it will be so I can give you authorization. So Chloe, you should be able to now.
Okay. No, get in a better position. Okay. Let me get to the right spot. Yes, turns out my dog is smelling everything. All right. Do we see?
Yes, we see your
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Let's go to present. Last time I did this, it was like I failed miserably.
Yes, working.
Great. And then are you timing? Am I timing? How should we time this?
Yeah, I mean, don't worry about the timing. Yes, it's 20 minutes. So you have till 37.
Awesome. Great. All right. I believe we're going to start us off.
Yep. Yes, so I will start off. Hi, everyone. We are group number 4, which includes Alfredo, Amy, Chloe, Divine, which is me, Devin, Joseph, Sarah, Susanna, and Taylene. So we will be presenting on Arthur Schopenhauer and Stanley Milgram's concepts, implications, and business applications. Next slide. So before we get into that, I'll just do a brief introduction into who they are. So Schopenhauer is a 19th century German philosopher. He is known for his book, The World as Will and Representation, where he proposed that human behavior is driven by a force called the will. And Milgram is a 20th century social psychologist, best known for his controversial obedience experiments in the 1960s. So now I'll pass it to Devin, who'll go more in depth.
Okay, so Schopenhauer's philosophies are a little abstract and esoteric, but it basically comes down to understanding his beliefs that human society is dictated by perception and how we see things. And if you use these 38 concepts that he put in his book or in his essay, you can use these concepts to shape the perception of the people that are listening and the people you're arguing with. So we don't have time to go over all 38 of his concepts, but I'll just go over the highlights of a few of them. So I'm sure we've all heard of the straw man. So the straw man concept comes from this idea of a scarecrow being made of straw, and it's not a real person, so it's easier to attack and tear apart. So in this technique, you would misrepresent the argument from the opponent's side to make it easier to attack. An example of this is an example of this technique in the music industry marketing could be something like making a statement like, those other artists out there are only in it for the money, but our artists are in it for the art. Another one of his techniques is called the ad hominem. Instead of attacking the position that they're trying to prove, you would attack the integrity of the character of the person you're arguing with. For example, if you're in a negotiation with a record label, you might attack their integrity by saying, wait a minute, weren't you sued in a lawsuit for breach of contract with one of these artists, which has nothing to do with the argument that you were talking about. Another one of his techniques is appeal to authority. So appeal to authority is when you might not have a good argument and you might just quote something from somebody who is perceived to be an expert, like saying something like,
I
rolling.
don't know what
yeah.
happened. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Devin, you may have to go back to
Sure, I
just
got
where
it.
she changed. Yes.
Okay.
So appeal to authority, maybe.
Yeah, appeal to authority. Okay, so appeal to authority is where you might have to, if you don't have a good argument, you might just quote something from somebody who's perceived to be an expert, like, saying something like, well, Rolling Stone says our artist is the next big thing. Whether they are or not doesn't really matter. You're just appealing to somebody who's perceived to be an expert. And then the last one I have time for today is the red herring. Red herring, this is all about using distraction. So this is taken from the idea where back in the day, they used to use a dead rotting bird to try to distract the opponent's hunting dogs. So an example of this might be something like, if your artist really isn't a great singer or a performer, you might focus more on the artist's costumes, makeup, and dance moves rather than the music of or the talent of the artist itself. So I'm going to pass it on now.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. I can't see anything, and okay, so we're good. So I'm going to be talking about the implications and consequences that Schopenhauer went through. So some of these are, well, most of them are we start with metaphysical implications. That's where the world, Schopenhauer's most famous idea, it comes from this book called The World as Will and Representation, like we talked about, but it divides reality into two aspects, the world as representation and then the world as will. The implication is that reality is not based on rational order or divine reason, as some philosophers believed, but instead it's chaotic. It's driven by insatiable and purposeless force. Another thing is moral and ethics implications. That comes with compassion as morality and then denial of the will. Consequence of this is that challenges Western traditions that base morality on reasons of or religious commitments, offering a more emotionally driven approach to ethics. Also, political and social. This critiques a lot of pessimism extended to society and politics. Basically, it's critique of progress and then also distrust of human nature. The consequence is his idea contrasts sharply with Enlightenment optimism, aligns more with existentialism and philosophical pessimism. There's also psychological and existential consequences, such as life is suffering and the boredom problem. Schopenhauer was one of the first philosophers to highlight existential despair, the idea that life is fundamentally tragic and happiness is always fleeting. So positive, as you can see. Also, aesthetic and artistic consequences. Art is an escape, and music is the highest form of art, as we know, obviously. And so his idea influenced later artists and composers, including Richard Wagner, who sought to express deeper meaning beyond rational thought. And final thoughts is a dark but profound view of life. So Schopenhauer offers a bleak but deeply insightful philosophy. He forces us to confront suffering as an unavoidable part of life, basically, but also offers ways to momentarily transcend it through compassion, art, and self-denial. And I will give it off to the next person.
Yes. Pardon me to interrupt you. I just want to remind the other students that this is the summary that you're supposed to upload. So all you'll have to do is write a short summary of what you understood from this presentation, and then you can upload it on Canvas. And so so the people presenting don't have to do this. Only the people listening have to upload the summary. So you don't have to write 1-2 pages, just a short paragraph, a few bullet points, just to show your participation. And I just wanted to say that. But the people presenting don't have to do this because you're already presenting. So that's your contribution tonight.
How are these concepts materialized in our society? By Schopenhauer. The first one to focus on suffering and desiring of consumers. So according to Schopenhauer, the fundamental force of human life is unsatisfied will, which fuels our aspirations but also results in ongoing misery because some needs are never met at the time. Temporarily escape, he explains that the emotional depth of certain musical genres can reflect the importance where listeners find a sense of focus or meaning. Quest of transcendence of solitude, he believed that in loneliness and self-reflection, one gets less distracted and can find some peace from the chaotic, busy work of life. Culture of comparison, comparing to others creates feelings of inadequacy and fuels of desire for wealth, beauty, or status, and fear of missing out, cycle of online trends. And lastly, will and representation, identifying a consumer's problem or unmet needs. This can help marketers create a narrative that addresses the consumer's needs. Next slide, please.
So the business applications that Schopenhauer shows through some of his concepts really surround shaping consumer behavior. So perception over truth is something that was seen because in business, it's not always about winning, but the winning isn't even about the facts. So it's about what people believe to be true. So companies that control the narrative are able to dominate their specific markets. An example of this is Supreme and Apple. They don't just sell computers and, clothing. They sell the feeling of that status and that exclusivity that we've been discussing. And then another business application would be in terms of how brands use that emotional appeal. So marketing is equal to be like a psychological kind of phenomenon where brands are able to use this emotional appeal and social proof to make consumers feel a certain way about their products. Then competitive advantage through rhetoric. So businesses that position themselves strategically, even without having like the best product necessarily, they're able to outshine their competitors. And an example of this is Apple versus Samsung. Persuasion can overshadow quality. So this is seen through Schopenhauer in terms of like how making that strong brand identity is super important and that consumer intimacy is maintained. So like that's buying a product that you're spending way over your control, but you are screen to stop sharing, willing to still buy it.
Chloe, we lost the screen again. Is Chloe still here? No?
Oh no.
No, I think that's why.
Okay,
But
someone.
just a second, let her come back. That was really good, Tiny, your slide. Wow.
Thanks.
Fantastic job.
And put it.
Yeah, very. Was this a team effort, your slide, or how did you work on that as a team, or was it like you and by yourself?
So this is just like concepts that were seen through like videos and like the research that the team found. I didn't know how, because you'll see throughout the presentation too, like the marketing strategies are very similar to this.
Yeah.
In terms of marketing and how to persuade that consumer. It goes a lot in depth with like concepts that we've learned in class. So kind of structuring it
Yeah.
in a way where like the concepts are broad. But while you were also doing the lecture today, like I added some stuff as you were talking, like
Okay.
the intimacy, consumer intimacy. I just added that because I thought it would fit in there. But yeah.
Yeah, very good. I mean, that's like I'm very impressed. That's this
Awesome.
everything is very good, but that page is like very. I mean, like I feel like saying major IQ to cover this and make those connections. So it's like impressive.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Just we're posting it tonight. The little half.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. So it's a no-brainer. Don't this normally everybody passes this because it's just doing it is more important than being amazing. So
Got
just do it. We
Got
just
it.
want you to be somewhat engaged,
Absolutely.
and that's all it is. It's just making sure everyone is engaged. Post it before the end of the class. So as we're doing it right now, just write your notes and then upload. Make sure your name is on there. Thank you for asking, just to so it's clarified. And every time it's going to be like this. Every time, like next time you'll be presenting a subject, and the other people will be doing the summary.
Did they take notes on art? Is this like a practice?
No, because this is a subject. So they only do notes on the subject, not on the client.
Got it.
So that's yeah. Thank you for asking. So it's all clear. And just doing it is all that matters to me. So that way you are participating. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, we've got the screen back. Talim, can you take it back to? I think you were at persuasion can overshadow quality. You just finished that.
Yeah. So basically this is about like asking ourselves the question of like, would you buy a premium product if it was marketed well, even if you knew it wasn't the best quality, like I was saying. So that's that illusion of value that's like made that Schopenhauer talks about a lot in his studies, and often that's like the most powerful and actual value that you can bring to a product when we're thinking about that business side of things. And then moving to like ethics versus manipulation. So this is something where we're asking like, have you felt pressured into buying something due to like having that FOMO? So like fear of missing out on something, whether it's an experience of something or like that feeling of feeling that exclusivity, that's where that comes in, where persuasion is necessary for that business application to like follow through. But then where's that line between like marketing and manipulation? So these like that's what he talks about. Schopenhauer really focuses on too, about like how fear tactics and these false claims and like misleading ads can like exploit consumer psychology in a way. So that people can actually notice you doing that fake stuff as well, and that could bring your value down as a brand. So he talks about that. And then yeah, an example of this is like fashion brands are creating like that fake urgency. So they say like limited stock, or like tours are saying sold out dates, that like etc. Just to make you even go on a third party and pay 3 times more, and they have that set up, in terms of revenue and how they can make, the most buck. Okay, moving on to digital age amplifies persuasion. So yeah, this is just about how like AI, targeted ads, all that influencer marketing make all of these concepts that Schopenhauer talks about more of like tactics, I guess, in a way, stronger than ever in shaping consumer behavior, because now that, this is out there, it's about how technology can use this and drive it forward. I'm done talking. Next slide.
Okay, so we're moving on to Milgram. So in Stanley Milgram's 1961 experiment, participants were told they were part of a study on learning and memory, and they were instructed to administer electric shocks of increasing intensity to a learner whenever they gave a wrong answer. This learner was actually an actor and no real shocks were given, but the participants believed the situation was real. And the experimenter, an authority figure in a lab coat, urged them to continue delivering shocks, even as the learner cried out in pain. And many participants continued despite their discomfort, showing how ordinary people could be influenced to obey authority even when it conflicted with their personal morals. So these experiments reveal critical insights into how people respond to authority. They demonstrated the power of legitimate authority. So people tend to follow orders when they perceive the person giving those orders are as a legitimate figure of authority, even if the actions go against their personal values. Another key takeaway is the role of conformity and compliance. Participants felt social pressure to obey the experimenter, which overrode their own moral judgments, highlighting how people can conform to instructions they might otherwise disagree with due to the presence of authority. Lastly, Milgram observed moralist placement, where individuals shift their responsibility for their actions onto the authority figure, justifying their unethical behavior by claiming they were simply following orders, which allowed them to act in ways they might not have otherwise. Okay, now we're moving on to the implications.
What's happening?
Sorry, I don't see the screen. Sorry.
Oh. We can see the screen, I think. I can.
They can see it, Divine, so maybe just...
Yeah, hold on.
Just look at yours, maybe.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so I'll be covering the implications and consequences of Milgram's shock experiment. The first implication is the ethical concerns in research. So this experiment raised questions about deception and psychological distress in experiments. So even though Milgram debriefed participants beforehand, the study still sparked debates on research ethics because of the results. The next implication is human nature and moral decision-making. So this experiment demonstrated that authority influences behavior more than personal morals, like Susanna mentioned. So it challenged the belief that people naturally refuse to harm others. And the last implication is power of situational factors. So this experiment proved that obedience is shaped by context, such as the presence of an authority figure or physical distance from the victim. Okay, and next are the consequences. The first one being that it led to changes in ethical standards. So this experiment caused stricter research guidelines, requiring informed consent and better participant protection. And this influenced the creation of institutional review boards. The next consequence is the impact on social psychology. This experiment is still cited in studies on authority, including the Stanford prison experiment, military obedience, and the institutional power dynamics. The third consequence is insights into historical atrocities. So this helped explain events like the Holocaust, showing what obedience to authority can lead to. And the last consequence is public awareness. So because this experiment was criticized by many for its ethics, it was argued that the stress caused was unnecessary and harmful. Okay, I'm going to pass it on to the next person.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about Milgram's concepts in society. So Milgram's famous experiment on obedience to authority revealed how ordinary people can be led to engage in harmful actions simply because they're following orders. So this concept's still highly relevant today, especially in workplaces and institutions, where employees often follow directives from superiors without questioning them, even when those actions go against their personal ethics. So we've seen this play out in corporate malpractices like whistleblower suppression or financial fraud, where individuals fail to challenge unethical behavior because they feel obligated to follow authority. So in organizations with hierarchical structures, like military, corporations, or government, Milgram's research helps explain why unethical behaviors can persist, including cover-ups, discrimination, or exploitation. People might comply with harmful orders because of the power dynamics at play, leading to systematic injustices. Milgram's work also influenced legal systems. In the aftermath of World War II, the defense that Nazi officers were just following orders was discussed during the Nuremberg trials, and today courts still explore how obedience affects legal responsibility. In the political realm, Milgram's findings help explain the psychology of authoritarianism, and his research shows how power figures can manipulate ordinary people to carry out atrocities, like during the Holocaust or in modern-day regimes like North Korea. But Milgram's work also emphasizes the importance of resisting unjust authority. Social movements like Black Lives Matter and Me Too challenge harmful authority figures, showing that we need to question authority when it's wrong. And finally, Milgram's research is foundational in psychology and education. It's shaped leadership training programs, teaching people how to recognize and challenge authority when it contradicts ethical values. His work also shows the importance of checks and balances in society to prevent the abuse of power and protect human rights. And I'll pass it to Alfredo.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move on to business applications for Milgram. Milgram's groundbreaking research on obedience to authority offers critical insights for understanding and improving business practices. Here we have 5 areas of business that can be improved by Milgram's concepts. First is leadership and authority. Milgram's studies reveal that individuals often comply with orders from perceived authorities. And within a business context, this emphasizes the need for responsible leadership and leadership ideals. So leaders must be mindful of their influence and power, guiding teams ethically and inspiring genuine commitment to the company rather than coercion. Just because I tell you to do it and I pay you to do it means you have to. Second is corporate culture. Milgram highlights the importance of fostering a corporate culture that encourages independent thinking and personal responsibility. Creating autonomous, independent employees is the goal. Companies should promote a culture where employees feel empowered to question directives and contribute to perspectives. Third, we have ethical decision-making. Milgram's findings stress the necessity for strong ethical standards within an organization that reflects an individual's ideals and morality. Implementing comprehensive training programs can empower employees to voice concerns about their unethical practices. Establishing clear ethical guidelines to ensure decisions align with the company's core values. Fourth, we have compliance and regulation. Recognizing the dynamics of obedience to authority can inform the design of effective compliance programs. A company can ensure that all levels within the organization adhere to regulatory standards and ethical practices. Lastly, we have employee well-being. Milgram's research suggests that excessive obedience can have a psychological consequence. This can often be displayed as overly stressed, anxious, and even guilty-feeling employees. Businesses should aim for cultivating an environment that supports employees' mental health and providing channels for feedback and dissent without fear of retaliation or social angst within that workplace. And we'll move on. Thank you.
Okay, so some marketing successes that we've seen is that marketing, basically for both of these guys, marketing isn't just about selling the products, obviously. It's more about shaping that perception and overall writing that narrative. So Milgram and Schopenhauer show how authority and persuasion with social influence are able to drive consumer behavior. So authority figures build trust. So people naturally trust these experts, the celebrities, and the influencers. So brands are going to use that to their advantage. So like when brands are like 9 out of 10 dentists recommend, or like the Travis Scott's McDonald's meal felt like you had to have your hand. So then we go to like framing and emotional persuasion. That's seen with both guys in terms of marketing. Like they're saying facts don't sell anymore. The stories that are attached to that product do. So Schopenhauer believed people accept arguments based on how they're framed, and they really don't care about logic. So again, with this Apple example, but it's just, it works here again because Apple doesn't, again, just sell a phone. They sell that creativity, lifestyle, and exclusivity of making their products feel essential in like daily tasks or running a business or doing a, I don't know, class. So social, then we're going to move on to social proof and herd mentality. So this is when people follow the crowd. Milgram's research shows that we can conform when we see others doing like the exact same thing. So marketing exploits this with artificial scarcity and having that hype attached to it. So like these sneaker drops, selling out instantly, and then like viral TikTok songs becoming unavoidable, like it's everywhere. So we're going to move on to the illusion of choice. So Schopenhauer argued that persuasion limits choices while making people feel like they're deciding freely. So streaming platforms push major label artists on like recommended for you, right? Playlists and shaping what people listen to without them really realizing, you know, what they're choosing to listen to. So the bottom line is best brands don't sell a product, they control the narrative. Marketing isn't just about selling, it's about shaping the perception. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so this is our group's overall opinion on how Schopenhauer and Milgram's concepts and like implications, strategies apply to the industry. So thinking about like influences everywhere, Schopenhauer and Milgram show that influence, not talent, shapes success. So marketing, having that social proof and authority, decides what's popping, what's hot, what are people wanting to listen to. Then moving on to hype versus quality. So honestly, our opinions were like, what really wins? Do people care about the talent? And honestly, no, because fans think they discover music organically, but labels, streaming platforms, and influencers decide what blows up. And that's the reality of it, especially in today's digital age. And again, working in this industry, we need to be like upkeeping on that, because the audience doesn't decide who blows up. It is kind of the algorithm that we're messing with right now. Okay, so the industry's persuasion tactics. So some of our opinions in terms of that and connecting some of these concepts are that how labels and artists use authority, exclusivity, and social proof to create this illusion of success. So like that sold out tour or viral challenges that like influencers do that like make you feel like the influencer if you can do it. Or like the tour example that I gave earlier, has to do with like these persuasion tactics that really play with that authority and exclusivity. Okay, and then moving on to marketing is pretty much equaling the real hit maker in terms of the music industry, because if you're able to market your music accordingly, then you're able to hit all the right, like at this point it's what Schopenhauer was saying was like it's like quantum at this point. Like you back then you could fit it in because there are like these 6 shortcuts to persuasion and how to persuade somebody. Now applying that to music, there are, you know, these tactics and persuasion ways to market yourself as an artist so you can hit those dots and, you know, face it accordingly in terms of what your demographic is, who your demographic is. Okay, next. Are fans choosing or being programmed? So playlist algorithms, influencer cosigns, and media coverage control what people listen to. So most people don't really question it. This is, again, thinking about what we were discussing earlier of like it's kind of the algorithms pushing it, so people don't really have that choice or know how to look for new music. It's just suggested and all over your social media, so you really don't have that control of what you're choosing to listen to. Social media is equaling the new gatekeepers, so platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube decide who gets that exposure, not necessarily who's more talented. So this in the industry, you know, really applies to like marketing budgets and how like equipped they are to push the certain genre of music depending on the target demographic. And then real influence equals lasting impact. So ethical persuasion builds loyal audiences and industry respect. So manufactured hype necessarily will fade, and real artistry plus smart branding can create that long-term fan engagement that, you know, was talking about in the marketing strategies of like that authenticity that you're maintaining and that consumer intimacy that carries on long term. And then lastly, artists who win use smart persuasion. So we were thinking that, you know, Schopenhauer had all these tactics on persuasion. Milgram gave a lot of insights on like consumer behavior. So then those who basically are able to engage the fans authentically, not looking like they're trying too hard, but also controlling their brand. So controlling their brand, take it as you will, controlling their brand with all of these things mentioned, and having that market creativity can last longer than those that merely rely on like these industry tricks. So those were our opinions on how both these guys apply to the industry. Thank you so much for listening. Here are our sources. Open to any questions.
Well, what I want to say is that I'm beyond delighted, above my expectations. The objective here was to present some authors that had a huge impact on our society, and to come up with your own opinion. And having done this from this subject for many years, probably 20 years with students, I've never seen a group providing such a deep analysis and opinion on the subject. So congratulations, this was super, absolutely fantastic. Huh? And usually, and what's most amazing is never the first group presenting a subject has performed as well as you've done, because the first group is usually very timid. And I ask them, give me your opinion, and they give a little bit. This is more than a little bit. This is very deep, and it gives me big hopes to hear from your opinion. Probably this Saturday when you will be presenting the honey business. I hope you're not going to lose this this perspective that you had today. I mean, this perspective today was opinion, opinion, opinion. I think, and why, and all this. Using Milgram and Schopenhauer, which, you know, require some putting your head down and really thinking. Exactly. So you've done extremely well. I mean, some of the MIA students said that this class was like a Miyagi, where you have Karate Kid and you have the master that tell the karate to go and do wax on, wax off. And the kid was very upset because he didn't know what that had to do with karate. And so this exercise is the same. What does that have to do with music? And you've performed so well. It was just outstanding. Congratulations. I'm delighted.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, this group 4, you're dangerous. So I want to see this in action with the marketing program though now, because you've mastered the subject, but can you do this for Kate and Corbett? And that's maybe difficult, but let's see. So the first step is, let's see what you can do with the honey if you understand the same thing with the honey. But you know, one thing I want to just tell you before we move on, I would like to move on to Lottie next, because I don't want Lottie to have no time, so that's important. But what I want to say is, you know, when you're a professor like Milgram, what is the number one thing that you can get is tenure. Professor's biggest reward is tenure. Tenure is when you're recognized by university to be a wonderful professor, and you should be licensed for life for the university. And what's interesting is he was a fantastic professor at Harvard and Yale, and he's probably the most referenced professor in history from Yale, and he was not able to get tenure. He never got tenure because what he was researching on was so controversial that nobody wanted to give him tenure. In fact, it's called the Milgram experiment, but it's also called the Yale experiment. So it's funny that today now we call it the Yale experiment, and it's very, very fashionable to talk about it. But that professor never got tenure there. He never got recognized. So he's like the most famous guy who never had tenure from Yale. And anyway, a little side note that I think is very important, because he again goes into, you know, those people doing an amazing job for us to realize that we are being manipulated. And he never even got credit for exposing this to the world. It's kind of sad, but that's the world we live in. And I think, you know, I've watched some of the debates between the senators questioning Bobby Kennedy and questioning Tulsi Gabbard and all these people. And sometimes you look at this and you could look at a little bit of the Schopenhauer technique and how they're questioning these people. And it's pretty nasty. But anyway, you know, that's the world that we live in. So that's why I wanted to expose you to all of this, because it makes a big difference to know this. It's like an inside technique to manipulate people. Thank you very much. Yes, Talim.
I just wanted to say, like, the group, I was telling the group and we were all excited to do this because, you know, like in cut words, like it is about deceptive marketing and about how, like, to kind of manipulate human emotion and to write that narrative accordingly. And I think that sometimes it's really hard to articulate that.
Yes.
So it was really interesting to have, you know, actual works to go off of, you know, that.
Yeah, I could sense that.
Yeah.
It was almost like you found the words for your beliefs, and then you put it into perspective.
Yes, exactly.
So you made it very real. So fantastic. Yeah, outstanding. I don't think anyone can do better than this. That was really, really good. Really good. So now let's see Lottie. So Lottie this is the second group that's going to come and talk.
Hi, thank you for joining us. So we're group 2, and we'll be presenting on our artist Lottie. And then let's see. Okay, so I'll go ahead and introduce the rest of our group. So it also includes me, Lizette, Adelia, Michelle, Omar, Ryan, Sophia, and Sophie. So a little bit our client. So our client is Lottie. So she's based in Los Angeles with a pop and R&B influence. And we've also found that a word that really describes her as an artist and her music is healing. And her work is one that really speaks to the human experience. In addition to, she's also a current nurse by day and enjoys songwriting as a way to help herself feel free creatively. And now I'll go ahead and pass it over to Adelia.
So in regards to her into her music career, these are her numbers. She currently has a combined audience size of 24.4 thousand audience members, but obviously you can see that both her YouTube and her Spotify are part of the lower numbers in comparison to where we want her to be. Currently she has a majority of her audience being on TikTok and Instagram. One good thing that she has going for her right now is that she's been steadily dropping music throughout the years and has been releasing singles and EPs, including solo tracks and collaborations. Next slide, please. Based off her current numbers and experience, we thought that some goals that she should aim for are to number one, increase her Spotify followers, Instagram followers, as well as her YouTube subscribers. Two, to maintain her steady momentum as a singer. And three, grow her social engagement. Next slide, please. Other artists that she could possibly work with that are at similar standing are Von Cell, Safari Bari, and Cara Rain. These artists also produce similar types of music as well. This could make it easier to collaborate together on tracks. Next slide, please.
So for the case study, Clear Soul is known for openly discussing mental health in her music and connect healing power, using her platform to advocate for mental well-being. So if you look at her timeline, her fan base grew the most between 2020 and to 2023. She presents herself as an authentic on social media and now has a 1.7 million fans. Her blueprint is already there. Focusing on healing is the source of a comfort for listeners when they're facing their own struggle. Now I pass to Ryan.
So Lottie's current audience is primarily 25 to 34-year-old male business professionals based in Los Angeles. And our goal is to grow this audience to build a fan base that more closely aligns with her vision and values, and therefore build one that is more compelled to invest in her as an artist. And I'll pass it over to Adelia to talk about her SWOT analysis.
So some strengths that Lottie possesses are the fact that she's a video content creator. She also has a consistent social media presence and is known to have a personable and sociable personality to those around her, which also correlates with her being a nurse currently and would make her relatable to her target audience. And some weaknesses that she currently has are a lack of resources for a marketing budget, a generic target audience, and she is also unable to commit more time to her music career due to working as a nurse. Next slide, please. Now, an opportunity in the market is that the wellness market has reached $480 billion in the US and is currently growing at a rate of 5 to 10% per year. And a threat to her is that there's an oversaturation of the market where there are 120,000 new songs uploaded every day, according to Luminate. Next slide, please.
So here we want to talk about possible opportunities. Lottie, one of our focus points around this project is a mental health, which is something you mentioned that's very important to you because you care about others emotionally and spiritually. So our group come up with the idea to connect mental health with your music. We want to present some information here and come out with data with the next slide. So today, the biggest health problem people face, not cancer or drug abuse, is mental health. And from 27 in 2018 is increasing to 45% according to Statista in 2024. Based on the National Alliance on Mental Health, states that 1 in 5 US adults experience mental illness. So anxiety disorder is the #1 most diagnosed mental disorder. Next slide, please. So the research show when people choose self-care to manage their mental health by listening to music is increasing by 72% in US, according to Blue Cross of California. It helps manage symptoms of depression, decrease anxiety, especially when listening to music after stress events. So music can help people increasing workout efficiency. By incorporating the music self-care strategy, individual can access the power of music to improve their well-being and sleep quality. Now I'm passing to Safia.
Thank you. So for Lottie's comprehensive game plan, we're focusing on strategic growth and long-term sustainability. Our primary strategy is to deeply engage with the Filipino American community in Los Angeles, and we believe that this market is crucial as we aim to increase her visibility and relevance within this vibrant demographic. We also plan to expand her audience by utilizing innovative social media strategies and collaborations. This includes working with other artists and platforms that resonate with her brand and music style, which in turn should create a broader, more engaged fan base. Next slide, please. Thank you. So turning artistic passion into a profitable business is one of our main goals, and we want to set the stage for Lottie's financial stability. Our approach includes diverse revenue streams from digital to physical merchandise and emphasizing a smart business savvy practice. First, we're going to introduce an interactive merchandise like AR enhanced postcards and posters that not only promote her music and Lottie, but also share crucial mental health information that merge both art and advocacy efficiently. Her personal interest in journaling will be shared with her followers and will allow them to connect on a more intimate and personal level. And this strategy will be monetized through the sales of themed merchandise such as custom journals or signed journals personally by Lottie. Our role is to equip Lottie with creative ideas and strategies without overriding her artistic vision. We're just here to support and facilitate, ensuring that everything aligns with her goals and ultimately resonates with her audience. And in conclusion, by focusing on the Filipino market in LA and expanding our audience through strategic collaborations, we aim to build a sustainable and thriving brand for Lottie. And our plan is to not only grow her following, but to deepen her connection with her fans and to strengthen it. And as we align with Lottie's business strategies and try to deepen her audience engagement, it's crucial that we ensure her brand reflects this evolution. And with that being said, I'll hand it over to Omar.
All right. So as a brand refresh, we're taking your already existing brand and boosting it and redefining it to better capture your audience and create a distinct and visual identity for you. Today, as an artist in the oversaturated music industry and the digital age, world building, branding, and marketing are just as important as the music presented and can make or break an artist and their work. So as an independent artist, you are tasked to not only create the music, but also to do it all on your own. So things like color palette, fashion, style, makeup, social media presence, etc. The way you present yourself and your visual identity becomes a huge part of who you are as an artist and as a brand. And that can either connect or not connect with your target audience. So on the left here, we can see the imagery and visuals you have already presented with your music. And we can see that you value things like nature a lot. You use somber natural tones and colors. You have a majestic vibe to you. You like vintage bohemian fashion, and that does complement your music a lot and very well too. So we are thinking we could refine your brand which is what we have on the right, with incorporating pops of color, but still natural tones. Use branding that connects to who you are, but elevates your visuals and complements your musical experience. That helps your audience visualize your music and takes them from an audio experience to a visual one as well, which is what world building is. With your brand personality can be conscious, natural, genuine, authentic, confident, effortless, majestic, and feminine. Your style can also be bright, vintage, natural, mature, and sexy too. Next slide, please. Thank you. So for the mood board, we think taking inspiration from artists like Janae Aiko, SZA, Alina Baraz, and Nico could help refine your brand and your branding, because we see a lot of points in common you have with these artists already, both musically and visually, with the use of the natural tones, natural makeup, love for nature, but also creating your own identity through these inspirations as well. The first photo and the one on the right are already pictures you have published, and that already fits the theme very well. So we feel like you could elevate that by taking inspiration from these artists. Next slide, please. And for your image refresh, we encourage more daring visuals, more daring fashion choices, makeup, and consistent social media presence, experimenting more with avant-garde styles and themes that further explore your music into creative visuals that starts the world building process for your audience. And engaging more with your fans and being more active helps to cultivate a deeper connection and create more hype for your audience to feel more invested in your projects. Now I'll pass it on to Ryan.
So we'll now be discussing our future campaigns. So for our campaigns, we will be presenting the Arts and Crafts Night, karaoke events, and the Enliven Wellness Festival. And I'll pass it over to Michelle to talk about the Arts and Crafts Night and karaoke events.
So we were thinking about doing an arts and crafts night because Lottie enjoys doing arts and crafts, and it also has some mental health benefits. It can improve concentration and self-esteem. It can also reduce stress. And so this would give her the ability to do something she loves while also engaging with her targeted audience. And she would have potential exposure to new fans because she could play her music at the events. And it's also an opportunity for her to play unreleased songs for fans as well. Next slide. And then we would also like Lottie to host a karaoke event that would just be like open to the public. Sophie already touched on some of the things that music can do. Singing can relieve stress and tension. It can also improve self-esteem. And so this karaoke event would be another way to connect with fans. And since it's open to the public, we'd also be able to create new ones as well. And so she would have the opportunity to sing some of her favorite songs by other artists, as well as some of her own songs. Now I'll pass it back to Ryan.
So the Enliven Wellness Festival is a perfect fit for Lottie. It aligns with your dedication to mental health and wellness, as the festival's main focus is deepening one's relationship with themselves. And it features instructor-led yoga classes and meditation, and you'd be able to perform as one of the musical guests, as well as sell our new merch at the authentic retail booths to an audience with similar values to your own. And participating in this festival will give an intimate setting for you to connect with the audience and build lifelong dedicated fans while staying in line with your brand and values as an artist. And I'll pass it over to Anna to talk about collaboration.
So an opportunity is an artist collaboration, as it is shown that a collab can increase an artist's visibility and exposure, and help bring more visibility to them through new audiences, with helping to expand their market by around 4.6%. So with developing music through collaborations with potentially a more popular Filipino artist as well, This could potentially help you build more connections, gain more traction, and better fuel your current momentum. So in 2018, Nielsen Music reported that over half of Americans have attended some live music event, and with a large number of individuals being interested in going to concerts, this presents another opportunity for Lottie. So a more recent report from Live Nation stated that concert attendance rose by 20% year by year in 2023. And knowing this, we can strategize to help Lottie perform at more in-person events. So Live Nation's On the Road Again program, created by Willie Nelson, has helped support developing artists. And then so this is made possible by being able to perform in one of Live Nation's various venues. So they also have club-sized venues and smaller theater ones, since Lottie's still starting out. So with this also helps support them by helping incentivize and provide them with $1,500 in gas and travel money for each show played at one of their small clubs. And so they also help waive merch fees for artists as well. And so the bottom line is that there's a very big opportunity from mental health that can be taken advantage of through using more specific strategies to focus on this. So we can address the idea of healthy living through more specific tactics such as wellness retreats, making music for meditation videos, hosting live events during arts and crafts nights and karaoke nights as well. And with the opportunity that also increased concert attendance and visibility from artist collaboration provides, we can focus on the strategies for increasing live performances for Lottie and increasing her visibility and exposure to the market. So therefore, framing our tactics to help target this, which would help to include potentially participating in Live Nation's On the Road Again program and through cross collaborations with other similar artists with a more established following.
So here's just a quick overview of our campaign that we have broken down into different phases. Phase 1 is targeted fan growth, phase 2 momentum, phase 3 connect, and phase 4 create and expand. Next slide, please. So for quarters 1 and quarter 2, we will go through phase 1, targeted fan growth, which we hope to have during the months of March through April, and that is where we will have Lottie have her karaoke campaign as well as different arts and crafts events. And we also encourage her to have a lot of meditation videos and to post those on her different social media platforms. For phase 2, that will take place during May through June. And we will have her attend different mental health awareness and wellness events, as well as take advantage of the AAPI Heritage Partnership and the Sounds of Saving Partnership. Sounds of Saving is a mental health and music nonprofit, so we think she could collaborate with them as well. For phase 3, that will take place during quarter 3 of 2025 from July to September, and we will have her prepare and release her collaboration single with an artist that is similar but has a more established fan base. She will also hold an arts and crafts listening party to celebrate this collaboration single. And for phase 4, that will take place in October through December, and that is where we will have her release 2 different singles and then end by releasing her EP. And the following year, we want her to do the On the Road and Live Nation events where she'll be able to have her promotion for her released singles and her released EP. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation.
Congratulations, very good. Big jump. I can see that you're starting understanding the flow and the connection to marketing and trying to put it together. Obviously, what I notice, and it's normal, and so it's my only critique is that you need to and it's very, very hard for those client cases because you haven't done them from January to March. So you're jumping on it. This is the third week, and it looks a little artificial in the sense that you're trying to plug and put pieces and all that. So it lacks a little bit of connection between the slides and all this. It lacks a little bit of a flow, but that's normal because it's sort of an artificial exercise. You didn't really do the consulting for Lottie. So that's normal, and eventually it's hard to get away from it because you're sort of pretending to be the consultant. But eventually, what I would like to is for the groups to take the voice as you speaking to Lottie. In your group, in fact, there was different people that were saying Lottie this as if she was not in the room, and some of the people Lottie talking to her as she was in the room. Eventually, you want to take this position of you have one voice, and it's also difficult when you have many people in, speaking. Eventually, for Kate and Corbett, you will decide who are the 2, 3, maybe 4 people that will be presenting because it'd be easier. There's a lot of next slide, please, next slide, please, next slide, please. And that's part of the effect that we can feel that it's piecemealed slide to slide. And we eventually don't want to fill the slide. It's a full story, one story for the client, and it's all connected. So eventually you want to have this connection for Corbett. But here, as far as I'm concerned, this was very good because you really try to play between the opportunities, the strategies, and the tactics. So you didn't talk much about the strategies, and maybe that's where I would have wanted to hear more about what is the strategy, the short-term, long-term strategies, and you were more focused on the tactics. So eventually I want you to become more confident in terms of the strategies, and that's probably what you need to work on. Your opportunity was good. So that's the big hallelujah. You know, that's the jump from last week. Is your opportunity was an opportunity, it was not an ID. And then you build up on this and explain that this was important. Hopefully you feel more confident now because you can see that music is not about just doing social media. There's other things that needs to be tailored to the person. And what's interesting is she's Filipino, so she's sort of the female Kate and Corbett in a way, a little bit. Not the same music genre, but you can see maybe that concept of the Filipino, maybe you more than any other groups could be using it because you've been studying it, you know, so probably you benefit from this. It's a little bit of a help that you got from that. So maybe there's a lot of things that you could try to see if it will make sense for Caden. Otherwise, I'm very happy you make healthy jump for the third week, the way you present and all that. So it's good. We're on the right trajectory. Excellent job. Fantastic. Congratulations to your group. Now, for the few minutes that are left, I'm going to quickly jump on the few subjects that I want to be covering. And in that instance, mostly the subject of consumer behavior. So consumer behavior is important to understand because it helps you anticipate when you create something, what will be the response of the consumers. So first, you study the consumers to know what they want. And 2, you provide what they want and you anticipate their responses. And that's what's very important. It helps you predict and anticipate and increase the likelihood that you will satisfy the customers by understanding their behavior. So there's consumer behavior and then there's business buyer behavior. It's slightly different, and I will explain the differences between both. But first, what's important is to see what generates differences among consumers. So there's the culture, the social class, the personality, and the psychological element. In the culture is the most important element, which is your culture. Your culture explains most of people's behavior. I mean, if you are American, you would be more likely to react as an American than you would be as a German person. If you're from the East Coast, you probably more have an East Coast type of response than if you're on the West Coast. If you are, I don't know, Muslim, you will have a more standardized response as a Muslim that you would have if you're Christian or Buddhist or Jewish. So these elements of culture are very important in people's behavior. And so that's the first thing to remember. But not just the culture. So looking at people's culture is not sufficient. You also need to look at subculture. And subcultures is very important in the music industry because for the music industry, the gender is a big element of the interest in the music, but also the different sort of generation and different style and trends within the subcultures that you may have. and level of interest for the music and so forth. Then the social class is important as well, in the sense that, you know, lower class may be listening to sort of a different type of music than if you are more educated from a higher class and so forth. Now, looking at the social composite, we have three elements: the reference group. So you could be from a social class, but you could be referencing yourself to another group. So within the reference group, there's the group that you belong and the group that you wouldn't want to belong. So there's this aspirational type of group. So for example, as a student, you may have an aspiration of being executive manager, and that's why maybe you're doing a master's to be able to get promoted. And so the executive manager is your aspiration. So sometimes people consume things that belong to their group, but sometimes people consume things that are part of another group, and it goes beyond the concept of subculture. But your family has a big impact as well. But people tend to think that their family is lower impact. Obviously, it has a very big impact when you're young, less of an impact when you're a teenager, because people that teenager oftentimes try to do the opposite from their family. And then as they get older, for some reason they start again looking very close to what their family has been doing. So what you learn from your family, what is right, the values from your family have big impact on what you consume. But not only that, are you married, not married, you have kids, no kids, you have a job, no job, are you a leader, are you part of a group, are you by yourself, are you considered as someone that is recognized? All of that will have an impact on how you're consuming. Then the personal factor is your age. So obviously different generation, different situation, if you've been divorced, if you had kids, if the kids are young, if the kids are old, if you have grandkids, all of this has an impact on how you consume, because you don't consume, let's say, the same car. I mean, if you have kids, you're not going to buy a two-seater. If you have kids, you buy multiple seats, but then you may have multiple seats, and then you have no more kids, and then you want a full two-seater because suddenly you feel this is the time to be more thinking of yourself. So there's all of this change of life have a big impact on how you consume. You may go to Home Depot more if you own a house versus than if you rent a house. So Home Depot usage is very different depending on ownership or being a renter. Your occupation, so your job has an impact on how you consume. The fact that you're making money and have a savings has an impact. The fact that you have other interests, maybe you have political interests, maybe you have interest in sports, maybe you have interest in traveling, maybe you have interest in food and fashion. All of that will have an impact on how you consume. And then your personality. So are you someone more interested in new things made in America versus made overseas, something that have been established, old brands versus new brands, all interested in innovation, interested in things that helping the environment. All of these different personality interests will have an impact on how you consume, as well as how you see yourself. Yeah. I mean, are you someone who is very egocentric, someone that's a lot of ego, someone that's less ego, someone that's more confidence, less confidence? That personality trait will have an impact on how you consume. And eventually, the psychological elements is motivation. Are you interested? What's your level of interest? What is your perception? How much do you know about the product? So I know very little, I know a lot. I've had a product before, I never had a product. I use the product, I try the product, I know someone very well that has the product. All of this will have an impact. An impact in terms of what you believe. What you believe may not be true, but yet your belief will have a big impact on the decisions and the influence of brands over your decisions and your attitudes towards telling others or not telling others to be a buyer. So one thing that is important is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Obviously, there's different level within the hierarchy, and as you develop different levels, you will have different interests based on if this helps you as an individual or if this helps you within a group. The just noticeable difference is a very important factor. Is the idea that eventually you have to create something that is a significant improvement, a significant benefit. If the benefit of buying the product is insufficient, people won't buy the product. Maybe between the iPhone 12 and 13, you didn't see any difference, so you're not going to buy the 13 because there's not enough difference. What is enough for you to want to buy the product is different between different people. But that understanding what is enough to change for people to buy the product, for the target to buy the product, is very important. In addition, if you make too big change every time, it's expected that you're going to be making a bigger change the next time. So sometimes making big changes is not very good because it makes your life harder for the next product. So the J&D is like the cherry on the cake. Is what is this difference that you bring into the product? I did a project for this company called Weetabix, which is the #1 breakfast cereal in the United Kingdom. It's almost unknown in America. Why is it unknown? Because on their packaging, they have 0 cartoon character. To sell breakfast cereal in America, you need a cartoon character, not just for the kids, but also for the adults. So we came up with a concept, a new product concept, and came up with a cartoon character. So for Weetabix, the cartoon character is Wito. And Wito then becomes the little character that plays and animates, a little bit like Gecko, the gecko for the insurance company. Is you have this cartoon character, people relate to it, relate to the product, relate to the benefit of the product. When you buy a product, there's a decision making of buying or not buying the product, which is first to go through a number of stages: need recognition, information search, evaluation of the alternative. Then you decide to buy the product, and then you think about the product as, am I satisfied or not satisfied? Within the consumption of the product, you have the adopter category, and I've mentioned this a number of times. It's very important to identify who will be the first buyer of the product, because that's how you get a product to be launched. For those artists, it's very important to understand those innovators, those opinion leaders, those influencers that you can be using in order to get the ball rolling for the artist to start growing his audience, his fan base. So first is innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and then laggards. And so you have this product life cycle where the product is growing. Now, I'll jump quickly into the buyer behavior and I finish with this. So when it's a business buying, the big idea is it's much more formalized. So it's formalized depending, is this something totally new that we never bought before? We never had a color printer. We need a color printer. So then it's different if you just modify. Is we had a color printer, but we need a color printer that prints more pages than the one that we had now. So it's a small modification. And then straight we buy is we had one color printer, we just want exactly the same. When you have a business, the issue that makes it more complicated, but the consumer buyer behavior is there's more people involved. You have the person that's using the product, the person that decides to buy, not to buy. You have the people that are servicing the product. Maybe they are the IT people, and they will tell you which copy machine that you should be buying. And then you're going to have the buyer, the person that actually cut the check, the person that's money is going to be used. And then you have different gatekeepers. People maybe that store, install, move the products, people that actually not doing the payment, but taking some parts of the payment of the delivery. All of these people will have an impact, and it's much more than a consumer, where it's less formalized with the consumer and more organized with the businesses, because every business, depending also on the size, if it's a $50 versus $50,000, it will have different impact on having more gatekeepers. Now, let's reflect on, just to finish, on the different stages of the buying behavior. If you remember, the stage before was need recognition for a consumer, and it's also need recognition for a business. Suddenly, we realize that we have to print more pages and with a bigger format or a higher quality of ink or something like that. Then we recognize that we need to buy a new printer. But if you're a consumer, when you do this, is then you start searching for information. Maybe you try the product and you buy it. If you're a business, and the bigger the business, the more likely is then you can have someone that's going to have to organize the different description and features of the product. It's called need description. Then you specify the product, and then you may have a committee that will review the purchase and review the best criteria for selecting the product. Then you may have a supplier search. So you may even publish the fact that you're looking for some of the product. You may connect and interact with some of the buyers, and then you will receive some solicitation and review the different buyers, and then order and have a performance review, which is that you can have some people that are going to be in charge of measuring the quality of what you've been buying in a formal way. Versus when you're a consumer, you don't have a committee that review everything that you buy. You're a consumer, and you're just trying to remember if this was a good or bad experience and if you're satisfied. Versus with the business, you will be more inclined to review everything and evaluate. Well, someone had their hand up, and I didn't, they just disappeared. So
it was me. It was me. Hold on. I just wanted to get you before 9:30 approached, but a lot of us are really confused on what you're expecting for Valley Hive. And according to your syllabus, that is due this Saturday. So I just want some understanding around that.
So what I did is I did a video to kind of clarify this. And that video was posted Monday morning. And right now there's 16 students. So exactly half of the class that went to see the video. So there's half of the class that saw the video and half of the class that didn't see the video. And so if you go in my announcement yesterday morning, I actually made a video that explained what you should do with the honey. And essentially, I'm just going to say it again here briefly. What happens is you have certain assignments which are music driven, like presenting Lottie. We just saw a presentation of Lottie. Then you have another assignment, which is to present. So when you present Lottie, you present a past, something done by someone in the past. So you try to reflect and try to understand what these students were trying to do, why they're trying to do it, and then you try to present it with your own words. And so this assignment is sort of a replication, preparation, coaching yourself to do it on the music industry. But then I want you to also learn marketing, not just for the music industry, for any type of industry. And so the objective here is to have a pure marketing assignment. And so therefore, here again, I give you a PowerPoint. Here again, I give you a video. So then you're going to see these people perform this presentation. It has nothing to do with music. It has to do with just pure business, pure marketing. There's someone that has a product and they want to sell more of that product. And here, what's interesting is it's honey. So it's something that's not been changed for 5,000 years. So you have to come up with an idea. Obviously, I don't want you to do that. It's too much work. So I give you the PowerPoint and the presentation so you can see what these people presented. And it's sort of should be easily understood because they're presenting the fact that it is very difficult to come up with an idea in the honey industry by looking at the honey industry, which is the mistake that most people do. So every Maya, the mistake that they try to do is they try to come up with solution for their client, Kate and Corbett in this situation, using the music industry as the template for coming up with new ideas. When in fact, the best creativity, the best inspiration that you could get is most likely coming from other industry than the music industry in order to become a disruptor. If you borrow from the music industry, it's more likely that you're going to repeat. And so it's like imagine everyone trying to do the same thing and trying to be the best by being with everyone trying to do the same thing with the same pot. So here, what I try to show you is the honey people, they came up with an idea for the honey that doesn't come from the honey industry, that comes from other industry, and they borrowed this and brought it in. And so this is the assignment you don't want to miss. There's going to be two groups that are going to do very well because they're going to understand. They're going to have a discovery, epiphany. Oh, I see what he means. So you borrow from outside, you come up with some ideas from outside, and you inject it from inside. It's a little bit the same. I mean, if you're a swimmer, you don't swim all day to become an Olympic champion. There's days you don't even swim. There's days you go for a run. There's days you do nutrition. There's days you do exercise on a machine. There's days that you do psychic work and all of this. So you think outside of the box of swimming. If all you do in the music industry is think inside of the box of the music industry, you're not going to be a disruptor because you have to come up from outside with new, fresh ideas that have not been implemented in that particular music industry. So that's what I said in the video on Monday morning. And so that's why this exercise has nothing to do with music, but there's a real reason for this, is because I want you to think outside. Now, there is the other presentation that we just had on Schopenhauer and Milgram, which also seems that it has nothing to do with music. And I was thrilled because most of the time the first group doesn't make the connection. And this group actually made the most amazing, ultimate, fantastic connection. And they understood the assignment. Maybe they saw the video yesterday. I'm guessing some may have seen it, where I explained, when you make the subject presentation, think outside of the box and give me your opinion. I want your opinion, and your opinion is what really matters. So when you give your recommendation to a client, I want you to give the client your opinion based on your research and based on your facts. And that's why I have the subject exercise. The subject exercise, because I'm pushing you to come up with opinion. The Lottie exercise is because I'm pushing you to think inside a presentation for the music industry for a client, but it's rehearsal. Then the honey is I'm pushing you to think outside of the box of honey in order to be creative in the honey industry. So everything, that's why I say the MIA students, every end of the semester class, they say, oh my God, this class, now I get it. It's like Miyaga. You're not doing anything that has to do with karate. You're doing things that are peripheral of it in order to understand how you build a disruptive perspective. And it's not something that I can teach in 1 week. It's not something I can give you a textbook that explains this. Is you have to go through the process of all of the stages in order to understand. So on Saturday, what's very important is come at your allocated time. So please, if your time is at 9, come at 9. Don't come at 9:20, otherwise you miss 20 minutes. And so if there is a group after you, come exactly at the time, and that group will have to leave. But if you see there's already a group inside because you come at 9, you're on 9:45, that first group, 9 to 9:45, should be finished. But don't come at 9:40, come at 9:45. And the minute you come on your time, they got to get out. And then it's your turn. So that way you don't lose time, because sometimes there's a group, they come and say, oh, there's already someone, and they don't come. So the someone that is there keeps talking most of the time, and they take away your time. So you don't want to, this is your time, protect your time by coming right on time, so that way you don't steal it from the group that is there by coming too early, and don't come too late, otherwise you wasted time. Does that make sense? No? Yes.
Yeah. I just, excuse me, I'd like some clarification. So we're going to be creating a PowerPoint or a Canvas or a presentation on as consultants of marketing for Valley High.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah. So it's not Lottie, it's Valley High.
Okay. And then
it's
we each group, according to the schedule from 9 a.m. to noon, each group is going to do that presentation in their time slot.
On their time slot.
Perfect.
And then they come, they give me the presentation, and I tell them, you understood this, you didn't understand that. You're not disrupting because you missed the point, or you sold the story too quick. You see, when you give a story that is disruptive to a client, you don't come and in 1 minute you say, oh, we found the solution. You need to come up with the flavor. And you're going to come up with this flavor and that flavor and that. Is you need to build up like a movie. If you give the end of the movie out too quick, people are not interested. And so you have to build up to why you came to this and explain the result and explain what you expect and explain why everything else is not going to work. That's the biggest idea on why. And to be honest, when we told this to the client said he worked 30 years in the honey industry. He's the president of the Southern California honey maker. He said it was the best idea he's ever heard.
Okay.
So we got validation from someone. That's what they do day after day. 30 years.
And then another question, in terms of deliverables, do we just need to present on Saturday, or do we need to turn something into you, because there isn't a slot in the module to turn something in?
Yeah, no, there's nothing, because you're going to present. So I'm just going to tell you if it's good, and it's a pretty, but that one I know is very marketing, because I want you to think just marketing, no more music, and not just on it out of this. And it's the exercise.
Perfect. I think that cleared it up.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
I guess with this question, maybe it makes it more clear.
Yeah. I was following all the marketing stuff. I was just really confused on like the logistics behind the presentation, but that cleared it up a lot. So
it's your time slot. So
yes,
respect your time slot. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't come late, so otherwise you lose, and don't come early, otherwise you're going to piss off the group that is presenting, because you're taking their time. Okay,
thank you.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Okay, you can still look at this video in case it's not clear, but I just took 10 minutes to explain this, but it's sort of the same thing in that video. I'm just explaining it as well, the same. But in case you needed to hear it again, the video is there and it's the same. Wonderful. I think you're doing very well. I'm very happy with the groups. So I think you're on the right path, but I think Saturday is very important. And traditionally it has been, because does the marketing business click comes, and I see it on Saturday. And it would be great if there was more than 2 groups, but the average there's 2 groups usually that fall into the click, and 2 groups that are still working on their click. So hopefully we can beat the stats of the 50%, but let's see. Okay, wonderful. Have a great night, and I'll see you on Saturday at your time slot. Bye, everyone.